Hello and good morning everyone, and thank you for joining our Oracle Cloud webinar today. So we are joined here by David Cottee from Oracle and also Hayley Mooney from Byte Software Services. So just before I pass over to David, I'd just like to go through a few housekeeping details with you. So you will be muted throughout the webinar, but if you do have any questions, we'll hold a Q&A session at the end, and you can just pop those questions in the questions box, which is just at the right-hand side of your screen. So the webinar will be recorded, and I'll send you all the link to the recording shortly after the webinar. When the webinar finishes, you'll see that a critique form pops up. If you could please fill that out, we'd really appreciate that, and you can ask for a callback from Bytes or any more information. Okay, so just before I hand over to David, I'm just going to pass you over to Hayley.
Thanks, Amy. Just want to thank you all for attending. I'm working very closely with Oracle at the moment and building the Oracle Cloud proposition into the Bytes proposition. I assume that most of you will know us from our capabilities around license management, and obviously this is a big area for us that we're focusing on right now. I'd like to just make a note of those that have attended the event previously. So this is a follow-up session. To that, we've got a couple of additional areas that we want to go into a bit more detail with you. And for those that were unable to attend the event, we're going to do a quick recap, and I'll pass over to David now, who'll be able to take you through that. Thank you.
Thanks, Hayley. Okay, we'll just get my presentation for you. Well, good morning, everybody, and thanks really for joining this call today. My name is David Cottee. I'm the Director of Cloud Technology for Oracle UK and Ireland. And as Hayley said, for some of you, this will be a follow-up call. I met some of you at the Cloud Day we had a few weeks ago in London. So we'll drill down a little bit on some of the services a bit further. Try and make some of the cost implications and some of the sort of licensing implications clear on what it means when you're using Oracle Cloud. And really bring some clarity around what platform as a service actually means. So in terms of an agenda, really I'm going to go through what is Oracle's platform as a service, what do we mean by PaaS, platform as a service, and then this might sound like a slightly strange topic, but I'm going to look at virtual images versus like a fully cloud tooled version of platform as a service. Not from a great technical point of view, but from a cost and an efficiency point of view, and why you would consider using cloud tooling and a full tooled up platform service rather than a virtual image, and also compare that to an infrastructure as a service offering. And so you can see the differences from a cost point of view and what the consequences are of using those kind of services. We'll drill down into a little bit, as I said, in some of the services. Specifically today, we'll look at mobile. We'll have a quick look at analytics, so what we're doing around business intelligence, and then from a social and collaboration point of view, I think what we'll do today is we'll look at our document cloud service, because I think it's something that everybody can relate to in terms of how do we really share securely our documents and collaborate on files, whether they be Word documents or spreadsheets or media files. It doesn't really matter what type of file it is, but how can we be sure that it's secure, that we can see who's accessing these things, we can reserve them if we want to. So we'll go into some detail around that, and I'll show you actually the live version. I'll show you my version of Oracle Document Cloud Service so you can see what it looks like. And then finally, as I said before, we'll look at some of the licensing issues around here. So what does it actually mean moving to cloud? What are the licensing implications? How does it affect the cost profile? And how does that look versus an on-premise model? So we'll look at that in some detail. Okay, so moving on. When we talk about platform as a service, it really has to be viewed in context of the three layers of cloud, really. And you could argue there are more layers, but generally speaking, it's accepted as an industry standard that there are three general layers of the cloud. And so software as a service at the top of the stack, infrastructure as a service at the bottom of the stack, and in the middle is the platform as a service. And so if you think about this, a couple of ways to think about this. If you think from a flexibility or customization point of view, if you wanted to just be able to do anything you want in the cloud, then probably looking at infrastructure as a service might be a good idea, because it's just a server and it's storage in the cloud. That is all we mean by infrastructure as a service. So we're not, you're not tied to anything specific other than perhaps an operating system. It depends on what OS is loaded there in that IaaS layer. So as you move up to the stack, if we go to the other extreme as software as a service, you're subscribing to an application. So you're saying, I want to subscribe to HR or to ERP or CRM, whatever it is, but that's less flexibility in that. You know, you're subscribing to something that's already built, it's been made ready to use, and therefore there's less flexibility with that. And so in the middle, when we talk about platform as a service, that medium or that middle layer is more of a focused approach in terms of, so it is flexible, but it's flexible with some focus and some consistency on a platform basis. And I'll explain more about that as I go along. If I just flip this over for a minute, if you just look at it from the other way around, so the benefits of SaaS at the top are it's out-of-the-box functionality. So you expect to be able to subscribe to SaaS and use it more or less straight away. You might want to do a little bit of customization that's allowed within the application. You know, you might be able to change the look and feel a little bit. You might be able to add a field or so, but generally speaking, it's ready to go. Whereas down the bottom of the stack, if we go back to infrastructure again, you know, out of the box, it isn't really ready to do anything other than for you to build something or to start developing something or to load other kind of services onto that server, onto that storage. It isn't really ready to go. So again, just bringing that platform service as the middle of the stack. Again, it's a focused area where there is some out-of-the-box functionality with some platform services. Some others need a little bit of tailoring and customization because they need plugging into your applications or plugging in downwards into your infrastructure. But again, we'll talk about this a bit more as I go along, and hopefully that will become a bit clear in terms of what I mean. So that's a very quick flyby of the three layers, but we're going to be focusing, as I did last time around, on the platform as a service, because that's really where a lot of the value is derived from. So what does Oracle's portfolio of platform services look like? Well, it's quite broad. You know, there's a lot there. You know, we're talking anything from integration through to data management, through to development, mobile. All of these services that we provide on that platform as a service, that piece in the middle of the cloud, is engineered together. It's built together to work together, to integrate together, so that you're not, if I remind you, if we went, and I talked about this last time, if you go back down into infrastructure, of course, it's more flexible. You could load whatever you want onto there, but the risk is with infrastructure as a service that you have developers doing different things and different platforms and different technologies, different code bases. And so what we find with many of our customers who have embarked on a cloud journey is that using infrastructure as a service, they end up with a lot of different architectures that actually become cumbersome and quite weighty to manage. And they haven't really been developed with the future and tomorrow in mind. They've been developed with very much today in mind. You know, I want to get going with something today. I'll buy a bit of infrastructure, you know, a server with a couple of CPUs ready and a bit of storage, and off I go, and I'll do whatever I want. And so when we bring it back up to this platform level, we get that consistency. We get the fact that the programs and the services are engineered to work together, and you don't have those problems of different architectures cropping up around the business that are difficult to manage. So, as I said, I'm going to go through some of these specific services in a bit more detail. I'm not going to obviously cover every single one today. We'll probably do that in some future webcasts for you to see a bit more detail of other services. So, just bringing this together for a minute, why is Oracle unique in this respect? Well, really because what we've engineered in our cloud is exactly the same as what we've engineered on-premise. So if you're used to using Oracle programs like our database, our middleware platform, which is WebLogic, some of our BI tools, our integration products, we've really taken exactly the same code, the same products, the same standards, and moved them into the cloud. And the reason that's important is because you can now enjoy the fact that you can move workloads between the private and public cloud. And when I talk about private cloud, by the way, I'm just really talking about on-premise, because you may or may not be set up to deliver as a private cloud on-premise, but you know, you've got IT on-premise, and you can move workloads between the two. And I did a demo at the London event a couple of weeks ago, how to clone a database and copy a database that was running in the on-premise into the public cloud, which was really, I guess, something around 15, 20 clicks of a mouse button, and we were away and up ready to run in the cloud. So when I say Oracle is unique in this respect, you might say, well, actually, I think I can do that with Amazon, or I can do it on Microsoft, or I can do it somewhere else. the fact is actually yes you can, but the operational cost of doing so is much heavier, and so you might have to think about how you can reconfigure network settings. You might have to think about how you what the versions are, how those compare from the on-premise into the cloud. And to give you an example, if you look at the Microsoft Azure cloud and running SQL Server, what you run on-premise as SQL Server is actually slightly different to what runs in Microsoft Azure. So transferring and copying those workloads between the two isn't actually as simple as it is with Oracle. So it's just to give you an idea there that what we're talking about here with Oracle's platform, it's just about choice. So we're giving you a wide breadth of products and services, as I said before, spanning from integration, business intelligence, mobile, all those kind of things, but also with the ability just to move them between private and public cloud environments. So that is a summary really of what Platform as a Service is from Oracle. So let's just move on and think about what this looks like from a cost point of view, from an efficiencies point of view. And as I said, this might sound like a slightly strange subject, but I think this demonstrates quite well how you can save money and create value from what you do in the cloud. So I'm going to be looking at infrastructure as a service versus platform as a service virtual image, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a second, versus cloud tooling, which is a full-featured PaaS experience. So in fact, let's explain it now, because then it'll make more sense when I show you the diagram that's about to follow. So when I talk about a PaaS virtual image, what I'm talking about is the fact that you're at the platform level, but you're choosing not to necessarily include in that some of the services that come with Platform as a Service. So let me show you, for example, a stack of what it would typically, a very simplistic view of typically what an environment, perhaps running a database and a middleware platform might look like. And the split here is representing the cost involved. So if I just to go back to explaining virtual image is really about going from the facilities, the hardware and the software and moving that into the cloud. So I'm buying a platform service that includes the cost of my license, the cost of the support, the cost of the hardware it's running on, and of course the facilities are managed by Oracle in terms of our data center. So you're gaining some efficiencies there. When I talk about cloud tooling, so when moving a step above virtual image, then we're talking about also including all of the things like backing it up, patching it, upgrading it. So a lot of the sysadmin kind of tasks that you would get involved in, or your organization, your IT organizations would get involved in if you're not from your IT organization, which actually represents a significant and the most significant part of the cost, excuse me, of running the environment. Let's look at this from an infrastructure point of view. If I choose to run infrastructure as a service, well, that's kind of good because I can see there that what I'm doing is I'm significantly reducing my hardware and my facilities costs. So as I said, that's good. I've got to be aware of the risks involved. I've mentioned that before, that it is a bit of a free-for-all in that infrastructure environment. So, but it's good because I save money. I save on my facilities costs. But I have to be aware that I'm not really saving anything on my software and my operational costs. I'm kind of bringing those with me. If I want to run Oracle on Amazon, that's fine. So I can subscribe to Amazon Web Services, but I've got to still have an Oracle license and I've got to pay support to Oracle. And I've also got to manage that. I've got to patch it, upgrade it, back it up, and do all those administrative tasks that I'm used to doing on-premise. So let's move that towards this virtual image situation. So, and again, just to give you an idea of what this actually looks like, if you subscribe to Platform as a Service virtual image, and that would be applied to our database and our middleware services, what you would actually get is a virtual machine in the Oracle Cloud with a folder with all the software that you need in it, and then off you go. So you have to do the IT. You have to install it, you configure it, you patch, upgrade, and all the things I've mentioned before. But it does include the cost of the license, and it does include the cost of the support. So it's a single fee moving you. And so what you're actually doing is you're gaining better efficiencies. You're now moving software costs, license and support costs into your single subscription to the cloud, and therefore all you're bringing with you is the operational cost of running in the cloud, which, as I said before, is the same as running on-premise, all the things you normally have to do to administer your database and your middleware environments. But we can see the cost saving is bigger than just running infrastructure. Let's move that on to the final picture then. So if I want to subscribe to a service where actually I get the most benefit, it's really going to be looking at platform as a service with the cloud tooling enabled. The cloud tooling represents the operational cost in this instance. And so what I'm doing is I'm moving pretty much, a very significant chunk of that cost all into my cloud subscription. So now I've, for example, subscribed to Oracle Database Cloud Service with the cloud tooling there. I'm saving on the operational cost, the software cost, the hardware, and the facilities cost, all down into my subscription fee. And so if we just plot those side by side, I mean, I think it demonstrates it's a fairly significant portion of savings using cloud tooling. Now, I'm just going to flick back aside a second, because you might say to me, David, well, actually, I don't think that does represent my operational cost, that orangey pink block on top. Well, that's fine, because you'll know better than I will what your operational costs are. I'm taking this from surveys, both our own surveys of our customers and also independent surveys and analyst reports of what the actual operational costs of running these environments are. It can be anywhere up to 59% of the overall cost of the environment is the operational piece. So really it would be up to you. If you think it's different to that and you know it's different to that, of course then you can model it yourself and I understand what those savings would be. So I just wanted to be clear about that I'm representing here what we understand to be an average or an industry standard, if you like, of cost representation in that stack. Okay, so we move past this. So that really is the view there of the Oracle platform as a service we've talked about. We've talked about the difference between platform and infrastructure. We've talked about then as you move the difference between just having the virtual image and having all the cloud tooling with it. We're going to look at some costs. When we get down to the final part of the license comparison, you can see what the cost implication of that is. Okay. So hopefully that's all clear, as Amy and Haley said at the beginning, you're very welcome to think about questions as we go along. We'll have a session at the end. If there's anything in that was unclear or you'd like me to clarify, then please do use the chat to register your question. Okay, so one of those services was Oracle Mobile in that platform layer. Mobile is such an important element now of every IT strategy. When we think about mobile, it's often the first screen that anybody has when they experience you as an organization, and perhaps arguably I would say for some generations is often the only screen that they would experience your organization via. There's some statistics here about 80% of adults worldwide will have a smartphone by 2020. The average time, the average number of times we look at our phone in a day, 150 times. It sounds crazy. I think my wife would probably argue it's more than that. But mobile is becoming ubiquitous and it's becoming a pretty pervasive technology. If I count the number of times I walked from Bank Station to our city office this morning and somebody had their head in their phone and literally had to dodge them on the pavement, it's getting a bit crazy. I'm not necessarily endorsing that, of course, but I'm just saying, mobile is here to stay. We know that, and we have to think about how that features into our IT strategies very carefully, because we can't really have a different mobile strategy to our general IT strategy. We need to think how it is encompassed into our platform, how we can easily mobilize applications, how we can link mobile to our back-end applications securely, and also we need to think about how we develop them. So just think in a minute about the balance between the business and IT here, because really often it's the business that's driving the requirements for IT, right? So we need an app. We need to compete well with our competitors. So we want to have a great customer experience through our application. We want to make sure it's always up to date. So we want to have this partnership with IT where we can just continually do this and make sure that our mobile apps are the absolute best they can be. And IT want that too. You want to have the best experience for your customers, which is the business and your business's customers. But you want normalization. You want consistency. You want to be able to do this with agility. You want to be able, very quickly respond and have mobile apps ready. But you need it to be manageable, and you need to get rid of some of the complexity. I'll just give you an example of on screen here, just a simple application. And this is just you might have this as a part of your CRM system. You have a mobile application that's showing you a little bit about a specific person in the field. I've got some map information here. Clearly there's an API into Google Maps there. What else? We're looking at some of the HR information. We've got links to Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and it's pulling clearly stuff from the back end here, from my core HR systems, from my talent management systems, and all the rest of it. You get the idea. So a typical application, business application like this, is going to be both retrieving information and sending information to various sources. So when you think about actually having to build this, this gets pretty complex pretty quickly. If you think about having to, first of all, just develop. I need to think about my potential iPhone audience, my Windows audience, my Android. They're developing HTML5 and whatever other technologies and codes that I want to develop in. So that's probably the first thing I need to think about. How do I secure it? How do I integrate it with the back end? And I'm going to talk a little bit just in a second about this this third box along in terms of monitor and analyze. This is such an important part of the mobile world and mobile strategy. If you don't know, if you built a mobile application and you don't know who's accessing that application and you don't know what their experience is of that application, you will probably continue just to fire out apps without, really having any ability to understand whether you're meeting your customers' expectations. So it's an extremely important part of the mobile strategy is to think about how do I monitor and analyze. So what does Oracle bring in that service, the mobile cloud service? Well, it's really about these 4 boxes on this slide, to be honest. It is that development and test environment. How do I develop my application, but I only want to develop it once. I don't want to have to develop an iPhone version and an Android version and so on. So we have partnerships with the likes of Xamarin and others where the mobile development framework that Oracle offers is a build it once, deploy many times. So you build it once, deploy it to multiple different technologies, and it's seamless. So you don't have to worry about all those different platforms and having to redevelop mobile applications over and over again. Integration is key. These plugs and these connectors into our back end, how does that actually work? We need to think about that. We need to think of it from the pure integration aspect, but also from the security aspect. If I have that link on that example application that comes into my HR system, I need to be pretty sure that I'm only pulling information that's relevant to that specific situation, that I'm not actually exposing anything else in my HR system. So I need to make sure that I actually completely nail down security on my mobile applications. And again, that analytical piece that I was talking about before, having the ability just to drill down to real specific detail. What was the experience of my customers on iPhone compared to Android? Are we seeing more hits on one platform rather than another? But what about also from a marketing and sales opportunity point of view? If I know somebody has been using the mobile app to look at a certain product, 3 times a week leading up to Christmas, I can probably be pretty sure I know what they want for Christmas. We can start to think about that from a marketing point of view, and using some decisioning technology to actually start making some marketing decisions for us as organizations. So that's all underpinned with the manageability in the Oracle platform as well. So you just manage that whole thing with the Oracle management tools that are sitting on the platform. So really, as I said before, mobile is an important part of any strategy. You need to get it right. You need to make sure that you have that consistency and that you think about from the front end, the user interface of your customer, all the way through to the back end where it's accessing your systems, and that you can accurately monitor and analyze that all the way through and make sure that it's secure. So that essentially is what Oracle Mobile Platform is about. I'm not going to do anything more technical than that today. If you are interested in Oracle Mobile Platform, please flag that at the end, and someone from Bytes with Oracle will we can either come and visit you, or we can have a phone call and talk about that in more specifics. Okay, so the other products I promised to drill down into a bit further were the analytics platform and the documents platform when we talk about collaborating with documents. So I'm actually going to just demo these to you rather than talk about them, so you can actually see what these are about. Oops, I've got an error there. That's okay. We can get around that. Sorry, just bear me a second. So I'm just going to do a click-through demo of the BI, and then I'll show you the actual live version of my document cloud account so you can see what that's about. Okay, so yeah, sorry about that. So here's the BI cloud platform. I think we're slightly off screen here. Sorry. Hopefully you can see that. I'm just gonna. Yeah. Hayley, do chip in if that's not visible on screen. Hopefully it is.
Yeah, it's fine actually, Dave.
Great, thank you. Okay, so here's my window into my cloud account. So I'm going to just sign in into my Oracle domain and with my user password. By the way, this is the look and feel of all Oracle Cloud. This is kind of what you see. It's a kind of a dashboard into your world of cloud. What I've specifically signed into here is my BI domain, so I can see my BI services. Hopefully you can see this clear. It's not actually all that's clear on my screen, but I think you'll get the idea of what I'm doing here anyway. So I'm going to go into this particular instance of BI, and I can instantly see some information about the service, about the status and the uptime. I can see some metrics about the service. But I'm actually going to go straight into the service itself. What I'm going to show you about business intelligence is specifically the Visual Analyzer product, because it's one of the things that we've seen probably the most excitement about in the marketplace. The ability to very, very quickly do some rich analytics on data. And when I say data, I'll explain more about what I mean by that in 1 second. I know you know what data is, but I'm going to mash up some different sources of data. So I've clicked on VA projects. I've got no current Visual Analyzer projects. So I'm going to create one. And the first thing it's going to do is going to ask me to add a source. So this is what I mean by my data sources. I'm going to rather than I've got a database here, my sample app database, but I'm actually going to choose initially to work with a spreadsheet. Okay, and I'm going to bring this spreadsheet into BI Cloud Service. So that has uploaded, and what it's done first of all is it's taken all the columns in my spreadsheet and turned them into pretty much database columns actually, and so it's given them attributes. It's recognized that these are number columns and some are string attributes and so on. And I'm going to add that to my project. So that's fine. So I can now see each of those columns split on the left-hand side on this window here that I can now start to do some analysis with. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my revenue and my month data. Now, one of the great things about Visual Analyzer is that it knows the best way to represent data. I don't know if you're anything like me, when you're trying to do some analytics, when you're using Excel or perhaps other kind of spreadsheets or other technologies, you kind of muck about with graphs for a little while trying to get the right representation that shows the best visualization of your analysis. So BI Cloud Service kind of knows, right? And this is very simple because I've only asked for revenue and month, so it's just going to give me a stacked horizontal bar chart by month of my revenue. So nothing amazingly clever about that, of course, but I can now start to think, well, do I want to represent it differently? Maybe we'll go with the vertical bars instead. So that's fine. We can customize this a bit if we want to. Okay, so what about if I now want to include the brand? So this particular spreadsheet, by the way, assumes I'm an organization. I've got 3 different brands that I sell, and within those brands I represent a number of lines of business, and you'll see those in a second. So I'm going to bring my brand into the color feature, and so now on my chart you can see my different brands. I've got my BizTech brand, my FunPod brand, and my HomeView brand. So now representing in my chart the revenue per those lines of business. Still not amazingly clever. I could have done that in Excel, but let's start to think about what's different here. So what about this size and width representation? So if I want to bring in here perhaps the quantity that I've sold rather than just the revenue associated with it and bring that into my width column. Now this starts to get a little bit more interesting. I can start to see in this single chart the width representing my quantity, the chart vertically representing the revenue, and of course split in color by my brand. I might just change that to my line of business into my color. There we go. So you can start to see the different colors representing my different lines of business, from comms to digital, electronics, and so on. So this is starting to look a bit more like some proper business analytics now. I can start to think about some more visual representation. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to add now another chart, and I'm going to bring in revenue, quantity, build, and customer as a separate visualization. And because I'll create best viz again. So when I've now got this kind of scatter graph approach that I can start to look at where some hotspots are. Now this isn't particularly meaningful in itself until perhaps I start to think about, well, what if I interact the two charts together? So if I wanted to bring in my games line of business, on my scatter graph I start to see the distribution here of that particular line of business. Let's change month, different month, showing me on the scatter graph what's happening. So that's fine. What about different line of business? Let's go to the blue, to the communications, and again I see that represented in this scattergram. So that's fine. So let's now bring in one more. So I'm going to look at revenue, and I've got latitude and longitude in my spreadsheet. So I'm going to choose now, rather than let it create the best one, I'm just going to go straight and say I want map data, and here it is. So again, I've got my three visualizations now that all interact with each other. I'm now looking at where I've sold my products. I can again drill down per line of business and represent them differently. I can always move these around the screen as well. I can, you know, if I want to see them a bit more. There we go. We'll go with that. So that's pretty good. Now, so that's all from a spreadsheet. So I've forgive the term, mashed up a spreadsheet, and I'm now going to bring in why this really becomes a mashup is because I'm going to bring another data source in. So let's add a data source, and I'm going to look at my database, which is behind my sample app, and I'm going to add it to the project. So the first thing that happens here is that it's going to notice whatever columns are similar between my database and my application. It's going to map them together, and it's done that, and it's noticed. Obviously, you can see there the matching between the different columns, and I've noticed that customer isn't there. So I'm going to add a fact. I'm going to add the fact that in my spreadsheet the column name is customer, but in my application it's called cust name, and so it will map those two together. Let's bring those in, and now I can see my sample app columns here. So let's just bring in some customer data. I'm going to use these trellis rows and trellis columns, and what that means is if I bring my customer segment into rows, I'm now starting to split this up in a bit more detail. Got my baby boomers and my others and my active singles, so I can start to be a bit more targeted around perhaps my marketing and my sales efforts. Let's bring gender in as well, and we'll bring that into the trellis columns. And here we go. We're now splitting things by a little bit more detail. So again, if I go back to my my bar chart here, and I want to look at specifically games, here we go. We're starting to represent now and see some real informative intelligence around these things. So I can see where that's particularly being sold. I can see what's hot. I can see here in my active singles, males are pretty much into games. I think we'd probably expect that. What else? Female, not much going on in the other category here. You get the idea. You know, we can move between months again and represent them in different ways. So that's fine. I can just go ahead now and save this as a report that I can just link into and distribute with anybody. I'll just give it a name. Okay, and when I go back to my home screen, there it is. My new insights for managers analysis is ready to go, and I can publish that and share that with anybody as a BI tool. So that was just a very quick demo of how Business Intelligence Cloud Service works. That was specifically looking at the visual analyzer capabilities. News that's fairly hot off the press is that we are going to release Visual Analyzer as just a product on its own, as a cloud service on its own. So you don't have to have the full BI service, because what you're looking at now is the full BI service that includes many other products and functions and features. If you just wanted to have that Visual Analyzer capability, then data visualization is the product for you, and that's coming out as a cloud service, as a standalone cloud service, which you would be able to buy through Bytes. Okay, so that's the BI cloud service. Hopefully that gave you a good view of what the world of analytics looks like from BI cloud service. It's built to be easy, it's built to be accessible, and it's really meant so that your analysts and your business can just do BI without you having to build complex and weighty data warehouses and those kind of things that you're used to having to do around your analytics. Okay, so let's move on. Documents. I don't know if this is going to. In fact, I don't need the screen for this. So what I'm going to show you quickly is, if I go into Windows Explorer, I'm going to show you Oracle Document Cloud Service as a great way to share, collaborate, and use documents securely across your organization. In my Windows Explorer, you can see this is just standard Windows Explorer. I'm just looking straight into my screen here, and I've got a folder called My Oracle Documents, and I can instantly see whatever folders I've chosen to share with my colleagues, my customers, whatever. Fairly simple view here. Now the little icon here on my PAS folder means that I've chosen to share this particular folder, whereas the others I haven't. So I can see straight away that here is a folder that I've chosen to share. I can click on that folder, and you can see what's happened here. All the green ticks have suddenly appeared to show me that these are all synchronized. So my Windows desktop is showing me all of the synchronized files of my document cloud service. And what's actually happening from a synchronization point of view here is if I just go into my sync manager, which is in my tray there, my sys tray, you can see it just gives me a quick view of my world, and I can see again, here's the shared folder, it's up to date, everything's up to date, and that's great. So that's fine. I'm going to come back here. So from a Windows desktop point of view, it's literally just dropping files in and out of folders. There's nothing more to it than that, really. But if I go into my browser for a moment, and I'm going to go to actually log into Document Cloud Services as in my browser. And by the way, this is exactly the same on mobile or on or iPad, iPhone, Android. You can do exactly the same things. It's pre-built, so you just download the app from the App Store or from Google Play, whichever particular technology you're using. You can just download the free app to sit on top of Oracle Documents. So I see the same thing again. I can see my documents here, my folders, and if I click on any of these, I can see a little bit of metadata. So I can see this contains 29 files. I can see who created it. I did. I can see who can access it. And so Caroline in my team, if I decide that actually Caroline, I don't really want her to be able to contribute to this folder, I can actually just change that she can just view it, or perhaps she can download files, but I don't really want her to do much more than that, or I can remove her from the folder. I won't do that because she'll be cross. And same, whatever. I can with every single member I can control that, or I can apply a single level across everybody if I wanted to do it that way. What else can I do at this level? I can just do basic folder management really. I can look at the properties. I can in fact, let's look at more properties here for a second. So now this starts to get interesting, because when we talk about security and we talk about management, I can start to think, well, do I want to share this publicly now, or do I just want to share it with members? So members are people that I've specifically added into that area. So if I said I want to add this as a public link, well, what role do I want to give the public? Do I want them to be able to contribute or download? And I can save that. And also what I can do is I won't go on because I don't want to offer this folder to the public, but what I could do then is actually say, I also want to apply an access code. So the public can have this, but they can only have it if they've got the access code to access that particular file or folder. So let's go into the folder. So if I want to share these documents with my team, Paul and Caroline here, that's fine, I can do that. They can upload, they can download, depending on what privileges I've given them. But if I wanted to actually then think, well, okay, I've published a file, who's actually accessed this file? So let's have a look at this cloud strategy file here. So if I go into the properties, now I'm at a file level, I can start to think about, well, what versions have been uploaded? How has this file changed over time? And who's accessed it? Who's been looking at this file? Obviously, I've been looking at it a lot. You can see that. So, this starts to think from an auditability point of view on file and document management. I've got some real rich data here. If I wanted to make sure my customer or my employee has read something, I can see whether they've read it. Likewise, if I want to check the security aspect, who's actually accessed this folder or this file, I can see exactly who's accessed it. Now, managing between Windows and the browser environment is just seamless. If I go back to my Windows desktop for a minute, I'll create a new folder. New folder. Let's call it Bytes. That's fine. And what I'm just going to, if I just waited 20 seconds, this would sync anyway, but I'm just going to force it through opening Sync Manager. And you can see now I've got a little green tick, and instantly, if I go home, fingers crossed, there's my Bytes folder. It's instantly available in my document cloud service. So how quick Oracle Documents is to sync up and provide that information across your organization it is a very seamless process and very seamless integration. I wanted to just quickly show you as well something that I always find quite impressive is the search capability of Oracle Document Cloud Service. If I wanted to look at something like RMAN, so RMAN is the tool we use to back up databases. There are no actual files here called RMAN, but it's going to read through every single file I've got here and find any document that contains that phrase. And so here we are. So it's found Database Backup Cloud Service includes that. And you saw how quick that was. This is not a click-through demo, by the way. This is live. So that found within a second or so any document that contains that phrase RMAN. So it's very, very powerful search capabilities. So hopefully this gives you an idea of how collaborating with Oracle Documents might be very powerful for your organization, because you have to think about not only just the usability of it, like I'm showing you now, but also the security. Now, all of these documents are secured at rest and in transit, so you can be secure in the knowledge that you know, if God forbid someone were to hack your network or whatever, what they would actually get is an encrypted file that they couldn't read. You manage that access and you manage that security. Now the other thing, I'm going to finish that now because we're running short of time. I do want to finish just the last couple of slides. I will just mention about Oracle Document Cloud Services that what I have shown you is just a simple enterprise file share and sync program, but the capabilities of Oracle Documents reaches far beyond that. There's very powerful APIs built into Oracle Document Cloud Service. So if you wanted to plug it into your applications, a good example might be into your finance systems, and you said, actually, wouldn't it be great if I could publish an invoice to my customer via Oracle Document Cloud Service? You can do exactly that. You can use documents in that sense because it has APIs that can connect RESTful services into other applications, and you can sit it alongside. And you don't necessarily have to use this user interface. You can change the look and feel of it to however you want. So it's a very powerful tool. So even it's a great tool standalone for enterprise file share and sync, but you can get a lot deeper with this product. What's surprising about it, it's cheaper than Dropbox. Okay, so you know our reps are selling this about £8.50 a user. Dropbox, if you were to buy the business version, is about £11 a user. So it just gives you an idea of actually Oracle is not adding a massive premium on for what it essentially is a pretty good product. It's an amazing product actually. We are actually setting the cost of entry very low for it. Okay, so I won't do any more on those services for now. Again, if you want to pick up on any of those three that I've talked about or anything else that I've mentioned, please do go ahead and pick up the phone to Bytes or register, and we'll follow up with a call or a meeting. So finally, and there's just a couple of slides left because we are short of time. License comparison, on-premise versus cloud. What does this actually mean from a cost point of view? So let's just take a very simple example. I've got I want 4 processor cores running Database Enterprise Edition. So our flagship database version, I want it running on 4 cores. Well, if I run it on-premise, I only need 2 processor licenses because it's Intel, so I apply multiplier cores. If that's foreign to you, please don't worry about it. I could explain it some other time. But 2 processor licenses are required to run 4 cores of Database Enterprise Edition. Okay, so what does that cost? So I'll give nominal discount here of 25%, right? So if your initial cost would be £55,000, and then in year 2, 9,930, year 3, same again. Your ongoing support is the same every year, plus an uplift, usually around 2-3% on top of that support cost. For the purpose of this illustration, I've just kept the support the same for 3 years, so your overall 3-year cost would be £75,000 roughly to run those licenses. So what would it cost in the cloud? Well, it might surprise you that actually we end up with something that actually looks more expensive, but let's look at it a bit closer. A 1-year contract for Database Cloud Service would be £36,480, and I'm applying a 20% discount. We normally give, to be honest, a little bit less discount for cloud services because there's a cost involved in us running that for you. So 36,480. If you map that over 3 years, well, it's just 3 times that cost, which is 109k. So you think, well, hang on a minute, this doesn't make sense. You're telling me, David, that operationally I'm better off running cloud. How can it be more expensive? So I have to bring it back to this diagram again and remind you that that particular cloud instance that I was talking about there included the full cloud tooling. So all of the sysadmin tasks I mentioned before are included in that service, database backup, the configuration, the patching, the upgrading, the management of it. And so you really need to think about it at a higher level than just the software license moving to the cloud. The true story is it isn't more expensive. The software cost, if it was 75k in that example on premise, if you map that out over the rest of that stack, well then you can see that actually the total cost of that environment would be £375,000, and 375,000 is the correct number to compare against the 109. So hopefully that gives you, I'm not going to do loads of examples, I think you get the idea that you have to consider more than just the subscription cost and the on-premise license cost. So let me just summarize all that. I'm conscious we have gone a bit over time, so let me just be really quick. Cloud computing is not just about infrastructure savings, okay? So if you are embarking on a cloud journey that just involves infrastructure, I would really encourage you to have a conversation with us and with Bytes to think about what it might look like from a platform point of view, where you can actually achieve some real benefits and some efficiencies and cost savings. Neither is it just about hardware and software, okay? So we looked at that sort of virtual image version. That's fine, you can save more money, but really you have to consider facilities, hardware, software, and operational costs when you're thinking about your cloud strategy. Finally, remember that first view of the 3 layers. Infrastructure as a service is very flexible, but there is risk involved. You can end up with more cost if you end up with lots of accidental architectures around your business, so you must govern that well if you're going in at an infrastructure level. Platform as a service brings a bit more focus, and it brings consistency, and it increases your cost savings more so than it does just looking at infrastructure as a service. And finally, well, why is Oracle different to anybody else? Really around that capability of being able to move the workloads between on-premise and in the cloud, and also in terms of the breadth of the platform services that are available, all those things that are engineered together to work together, to integrate together, and provide you the best possible experience in the cloud. So with that, I'm going to end the slides and pass back over to Amy and Hayley. I'm not sure which, but if there's any questions, I'll gladly take those.
Thanks, David. Right, I'll just pop it back to my screen. So yeah, if you do have any questions at all, there is a questions box just at the right-hand side of your screen. So if you just pop them in there, I'll read those out for David and Hayley. So we actually have a few questions already. So Dennis has asked, he said, could you extend a little on the cloud tooling features that allow you to reduce operational costs? Where do you believe organizations can save their operational costs with cloud tooling in platform as a service?
Yeah, so really, as I said before, it's around those kind of sysadmin tasks that are a bit of a grind, frankly. The patching and upgrading alone is such can be a onerous task. Finding the right window to patch and upgrade, certainly moving to a later version rather than just like a minor upgrade. A version upgrade can be a costly administrative task. Also, things like backing up data is a pain. It's costly. People have to spend time and effort and energy doing these kind of things. Now, what I'm not saying is that get rid of all of your IT admin staff. What I'm saying actually is around those people can be doing more innovative and better, spending their time better than doing these administrative tasks. So they can actually, when you talk about using cloud to become more agile and innovative, that's really why, because you're freeing up people's time and their effort and their resource to do something different and to actually cope with business demand rather than just keeping the lights on. That phrase "keeping the lights on" is probably overused when we talk about IT, but it is a real problem. And it's the keeping the lights on is that operational cost, feeding and watering the database, the middleware, the management of it is really where that operational saving comes from.
Thank you, David. So I have a question here from Richard. He's got a couple of questions on document management. He said, can you put workflow and set metadata on documents? And he's also asked, can you have group folders, or is it down to each person to decide who they share with?
Yes, you can have group folders. That's easy enough, because you don't want to have to on every single file decide who can access this. You'll be there forever just administering it. So you can do that at a folder level and higher up. So what I didn't show you actually was the administrative level of this, because if you want to get in as the administrator of the service, you can actually pre-build some of this stuff if you want to, or just at the folder level, you can say, right, in this folder, these people can access any of these files at this level, rather than going into individual files. Could you just repeat the bit about the workflow, Amy? Sorry, what was that bit?
Yeah, sure. So he said, can you put workflow and set data, metadata on documents?
Right, so not directly on, the document will keep its own metadata as what I showed you. So it's limited really to the document properties, who's accessed the version history. Document Cloud Service is built to sit alongside Process Cloud Service. So managing a workflow of a document in that respect, what you would do is sit Document Cloud Service and Process Cloud Service side by side. And that was how you would actually manage it from a workflow point of view and add additional metadata to your document. We could do a separate demo on that sometime if that's what you want to see. We could show you how that's managed and how it works.
Okay, thank you, David. So we have a question here from Stephen. He said, what happens with the current Oracle licenses we have, which are perpetual? When we move to a cloud-based service, do we lose them?
Okay, so we talked about this back at the Cloud Day, and there was a bit of confusion, and I think that still exists, and it's probably me not explaining it very well, so apologies for that. If you have an on-premise license, there's a number of things you can do with it. So firstly, you can say, right, I've got, let's take that example, I've got a 2-processor license for Database Enterprise Edition. I now want to use that Database Enterprise Edition in the cloud. The first thing to say is, well, do you want that instead of or as well as? Because one of the reasons we find customers going to the cloud is they want to do their test and dev in the cloud, but they want to bring it back into onto premise in production. Many customers do that, and again, with Oracle, moving those workloads between the two is no problem at all. So what we're not talking about here is saying, right, my 2-processor license of Oracle, I'm moving it into the cloud. What we're saying is, if you subscribe to cloud as a new customer to cloud, you're buying inside that the cost of the license, the support, the infrastructure, etc., and the services involved in that. Now, so that I suppose begs a separate question. Well, can I move my license then into the cloud and not have to pay all that? The answer is yes, you can. So what we can do, if you have an unused license on premise and you say, I want to now use this in the cloud, we will reduce the cost of the cloud service significantly to recognize you have that unused on-premise license. So one way or another, you can benefit. Now, just to give you the final 10% of that, what you could also do is just say, well, I want to cancel my on-premise license and support and just move to cloud, and that's fine. Now, just the caveat there, of course, if you're aware, you're probably aware already, it's very difficult to pull apart Oracle support contracts. If it's a standalone contract, if I had one contract for those 2 processors of database and I say, right, I want to cancel that, it's on a single CSI, and I want to now take out Oracle Cloud Service for the same, no problem at all. So there's a bunch of options there, and the Bytes team are very skilled at license management. They can give you the optimized view of what would look best for your organization. But I would suggest, so rather than going alone on that, I would probably go with Bytes to do the kind of asset management feel to that before you made a decision. So please do flag if that's not clear. I'll happily try and explain it again, but because there are lots of options.
Okay, thank you, David. So we have another question here. So this one's from Anthony. He's asked, how well does performance scale with large databases with high processing requirements? Tens of CPUs, for example. How does this license cost compare with on-prem virtualization costs?
Well, I mean, so it's a fixed cost for the subscription. So if you wanted, it's per CPU. For in the cloud. So if you wanted to scale to 10 CPUs, then the price is per CPU. But the way that we operate commercially is there are 2 options here. We can operate, and we talked about again that last time. So if you heard this last time, forgive me. I'll just quickly repeat the difference between a metered service and a non-metered service. If you said, David, I want to buy 10 CPUs of Oracle Database in the cloud on a subscription, that's fine. You can do that, and you'll just run 10 CPUs, and off you go. You're done. That's a non-metered service. what you can also do is say, well, I'm going to put some money into like a prepaid card, essentially. I can put some money into that, and I can, I might want to set up as a 2 CPU environment, but scale up to 10 when I want to at peak times. And what you'll do is you'll burn more credit during those periods as you scale up to that 10 CPUs. So that's the kind of the commercial answer to it. In terms of technically, how does it scale? Well, I mean, it's a few clicks of a button. Yes, it does scale. It's just like scaling up on premise. The only limitation really is because you're in the cloud is your network bandwidth. You are accessing it via a secure shell access over IP, and so it isn't really CPU capability isn't really the issue on performance. It would just be about the connection into it, and for that we have some answers. If you wanted direct connect capabilities, we can add that on as a service, so you can have a fast connect into our data center from yours, so we can solve those problems too. But so it's different considerations really. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, thanks, David. So I think that's all the questions we have today. So Hayley, shall I just pass over to you quickly?
Certainly, yeah, thank you. Just want to thank you all for your attendance. I mean, obviously the platform services are vast, and we wanted to take the opportunity to just delve into a couple more of those today. So hopefully it's been interesting. And I'm going to touch base with all of you over the next week. I've got a colleague, Sarah Reed, who's also, I know, already been speaking to some of you. But really, we want to help you get from A to B, and we can help make suggestions and give some examples of where it's worked in other areas previously. So I'll have those conversations with you over the next week. I look forward to speaking to all of you. If you do have any questions, then please do just let us know in the meantime. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Hayley. And also, so thank you everyone for joining, and thank you, David, for presenting today. So yeah, if you would prefer to submit any questions outside the webinar, our email's there, and I'll forward those to Hayley.
I will just summarise and close. David, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I've just lost a bit of audio there. Thank you very much for attending, and as I say, we'll be in touch soon to catch up. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.